Welcome back to Book Break. I am here today at one of my favourite bookshops in London. This is the Second Shelf, which you absolutely must come and visit. It's tucked away in the most gorgeous little Smith's Court. I will link to their website below so you can come and visit. And the Second Shelf specialises in collectible books by women. What I absolutely love about it here is that doesn't necessarily mean expensive books. They've got books in every price range. So if you feel like your bookshelf could do with a few more books by women on it, then definitely come and visit. And I was so excited to come here because this is just the perfect place to talk about today's theme, which is books where women take over. So of course I had to mention The Power by Naomi Alderman. This is a very famous example of a book where women take over, literally, and it's a fantastic book. I really love this one. But I'm now going to talk about some books that take this idea in a slightly different direction. So these are books where women were isolated or banished, or maybe isolated themselves for whatever reason and ended up governing their own all-female space. And it's a really fun theme because all of the books I've read that do this take this idea in a totally different direction. So here are just 9 of our recommendations. So the first book on my list is The Mercies by Hargrave, which is an incredible book about this true story. So this one is set on the Norwegian island of Vardø, Christmas Eve 1617, when there is this terrible storm. All of the men of the island are out fishing and they are all killed in this storm. So suddenly the island becomes this place of women. It's a terrible scene, but the women then get on with their lives. They learn to fish, they learn to fend for themselves, until one day a sinister man arrives to this island who has been sent because there are suspicions that the women are practicing witchcraft. So one of the main themes in this book is male fear of female strength. The women get on fine when they're left to fend for themselves, and that in itself makes them suspicious in the eyes of men, which leads in this book and in the true story to pretty tragic consequences. Now, a very different book is Wilder Girls by Rory Power. So this is set at an all-girls boarding school which is put under quarantine after this illness called the tox hits, and it kills off all of the teachers, and the way it infects the girls is it starts to warp their bodies. So there's a lot of body horror in this book. It also affects the wildlife, so the woods that surround the schools are now also dangerous. So these girls are basically trapped in the school learning to explore their new bodies and the new ways their body works. So we get to see a lot of different bonds between these girls. We get female romances, and we also get just really strong female friendships that lead the girls to put themselves in danger in order to protect each other. It's basically a feminist horror spin on Lord of the Flies. And a more direct Lord of the Flies comparison is the book Savages by Shelley, which is a really fun book from the 80s about a group of rich housewives left to fend for themselves on an island after a trip gone wrong. And Shelley has said that all of her books are in one way or another written to help women and help them improve their situation. So over the course of her career, she has argued with her editor to let her put the word masturbation on the back cover of her book. She has written a novel which she has admitted was basically a disguised sex guide for schoolgirls because sex education was so terrible, and she has the whole time championed for women to make their own money. And then of course I had to include in this theme Wonder Woman. So Wonder Woman's first ever appearance was in All-Star Comics number 8 in 1941, and by 1942 she had her own series. And Wonder Woman's origin story is that she comes from Paradise Island, which is this all-female island inhabited by the Amazons, including Wonder Woman's mother, Hippolyta, which is also my dog's name. And the island was blessed by the Olympian gods, and no man was allowed to physically set foot on it. And in later versions of the story they added in different details. In some versions the Amazons are actually the reincarnated souls of all women who were slain by men throughout prehistory, and now they've been granted immortality, great physical strength, wisdom, beauty, and love for one another. So that's a mythology-inspired all-female world, and then for a futuristic all-female world we have the graphic novel Woman World by Aminda Dhaliwal. So this started off as an Instagram comic, but you can now buy it as a book, and it's about a world after all men have been wiped out and the only living person who has any memory of men is Grandma. And so the women have restarted this new world, and their flag is Beyonce's thighs. And the women in these comics represent the entire spectrum of womanhood. They're just really fun, funny little snapshots of what this world might be like, as well as putting in little bite-sized pieces of feminist philosophy. I love it. Next, I've got Dealing in Dreams by Lillian Rivera. So this is a young adult dystopian set in a world that is ruled by women, but just like in The Power, they're not exactly benevolent rulers. So this book is set in Mega City, which is run by a woman who sends out groups of 5 girls at a time to rule the streets. And the best and fiercest of these groups is run by our main character, Nala. But her dream is to get off the streets and into mega towers, this really exclusive community that only the chosen few get to live in. So that's a pretty dark one, and another dark and very bizarre one is The Water Cure by Sophie Mackintosh. So this is a really mesmerising novel. It's very hard to explain, but I loved it. It's set on this island where there are 3 sisters who live with their mother. Their father used to live with them, but he has disappeared, and they have been told that the outside world and the men that live in it are toxic, but it's left ambiguous as to whether that's literally toxic if there's been some environmental catastrophe, or if it's metaphorically that they can just cause harm to them. Until one day, these men show up on the island and tell the girls that everything they know about the world is wrong. And it's a really strange, haunting novel. That's basically all I can give you to go off, but just give it a go. It's a really interesting one. And then The Lost Girls of Camp Forevermore by Kim Fu is about a group of young girls at a sleepaway camp who set off on this overnight kayaking trip to a nearby island that ends in disaster when they end up stranded with no adults to help them home. So they're in this life or death situation. And the book follows them through this event and beyond throughout the rest of their lives. And it keeps flashing back and forth. So we get to know each character really, really intimately and see the ripple effects that this event had, or in some cases didn't have, on the rest of their lives. And finally, a book that has been super popular, but I had to include it while we're talking about women on islands, is Circe by Madeline Miller. So this is about the Greek goddess Circe, who is most well known for her part in the Odyssey. Odysseus and his men land on her island and she turns his men into pigs, and then he stays with her for a year and has a son with her. In some versions he has multiple sons, which is pretty efficient for a 1-year stay. And then Circe also shows up in a few other myths having pretty minor roles. But in the book Circe, this is flipped to put Circe at the centre, and so suddenly all of the other Greek heroes just become supporting parts in her story. And her story is that she was banished to this island because the gods were threatened by her magical powers, and so she spends thousands of years alone on this island honing her witchcraft, and it is just so empowering and so much fun to read. Whether or not you're familiar with the Greek myths, this book is a really fun way to learn them. So do leave us a comment letting us know your favourite books where women take over. I absolutely cannot get enough of this theme, and of course come and visit the second shelf. It is such a great bookshop. Like I said, all of the links are in the description below, and of course give this video a thumbs up if you liked it and hit that subscribe button below for new videos every week. And in the meantime, you can always go and follow us over on Instagram at BookBreakUK. See you next time.